Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and way beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. Today's guest built an empire from something most people never saw coming. When Jeff Webb founded Varsity Spirit, there was no blueprint, no billion-dollar market, just an idea that something powerful was happening in cheerleading, and that if you treated it with the respect and structure of a sport, you could build something transformative. Fast forward, Jeff didn't just build a company, he built a category. Cheerleading is now a globally recognized sport on its way to the Olympics, and Varsity Spirit, the company he started from his apartment, became a juggernaut that he sold for $2.5 billion. But what makes Jeff remarkable isn't just the numbers, it's the way he did it. He didn't start with capital. He didn't even start with a business plan. He started with purpose to do something meaningful that added value to people's lives. And along the way, he pioneered how to scale a niche, how to grow a movement, and how to lead with vision, even when everyone else is focused on the short term. Today, Jeff is the president of the International Cheer Union and a mentor to the next generation of leaders and founders. Jeff Webb, welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here with you. Thank you for that great introduction.
Yeah, very excited to talk to you because this is a very interesting concept where a lot of times I've got, these different growth hacks here or there, and a lot of them center around marketing, but I haven't talked to somebody who's like, hey, let's actually just make this into a complete national competition and turn this around. So this is going to be a fun one. I do want to give a shout out to Jacob Berkowitz over at Rubenstein PR for putting us in touch. So Jacob, thank you very much. Excited to bring this out to you, everybody. Last interruption before we get into the good stuff. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. Okay, Jeff, let's start at the beginning. How did Varsity Spirit start? And more specifically, what problem were you solving in the beginning?
Well, the predecessor to Varsity Spirit was a company I called Universal Sports Camps, but it was, it was designed just to conduct these instructional camps for college and high school cheerleaders. And while I was in college, my summer job was working for a gentleman and his company that really kind of started the idea of doing cheerleading camps. His name was Lawrence Herkimer, and he had been a cheerleader at SMU in Dallas and was had been a former gymnast and had done some tumbling when they came onto the field, things that people see all the time now. Mm-hmm. And became a physical education teacher after that. And then he got inquiries for people to go and help their cheerleaders kind of be better. Anyway, so he created these camps, and I was working for him, and I was at the University of Oklahoma. And as I was about to graduate, I got a call from him. I was getting ready to go to law school, and he was in Dallas, his office, and he asked if he could come up and buy me lunch. And so, sure. So he did, and he asked me if I would take a year off of college, between college and law school, and come to work in his office. And he was doing these one-day clinics around the country, and could I help him do some of that? But he had seen me running some of his camps and really thought that I could add a lot. And he offered to pay me what seemed like a lot. Well, it was a lot of money for the time, I can say that. And I'd pretty much been dirt poor for 4 years at college, trying to work my way through in 2 or 3 jobs. And I thought, have a little money in my pocket when I go to law school might not be a bad thing. So I moved to Dallas, which is where I was originally from, and I moved back and went to work for him. He had 4 or 5 other people working in his office, older than me, and so I just started helping him, and I would go to camps and clinics and just kind of carry the torch. And he eventually, after a year and a half, came to me and said, I've been waiting 25 years for you to come along, and made me general manager of the company, which I was like, wow, here I am, 23 years old, general manager of this company, right? And that was great with me, but not so great with the people that had been there 10 years. Right?
Sure.
Some kid comes in from college. So anyway, so I kind of started trying to do some things. I had no idea. I was an entrepreneur, and I wanted to kind of change things and modernize things. They've been done the same way, literally for 20 years, and had a hard time getting that done. Had a lot of resistance. It's a classical story. Resistance from the people who, were older and thought that things were going great, and why should we change?
This is how we do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So eventually, it just kind of wasn't worth it. So I resigned, and I went on through the summer and did his camps. But when I came back, I was thinking about what I could do, and some of my friends who were also instructors of camps, and I had started doing just kind of some experimentation with some acrobatic stuff, and the things you see on the sideline now, the predecessors to those. And I had some people that were close friends just encourage me to take what I'd learned and some of my new ideas and see if I could make a go of it. And that was about how complicated the decision was. There wasn't a big market study or anything like that. And so I raised a little bit of money from friends and family. And again, the idea just to do these summer camps. We wanted to capitalize the company with $100,000. This is 1974. Wow. We thought that'd be more money than we ever needed. That was wrong, of course. That was totally wrong. But so we didn't get quite that far. I think we ended up with 85. And in those days, that was really before LLCs and S corps, and people, when they invested in companies, if they didn't want to have liability, it wasn't a C corp. It was a limited partnership, and that's what we created. And the partnership units were $5,000 each, and I had put all my life savings at that point, which was $10,000. Bought 2 units. My father bought a couple of units, and with a friend from Midland, Texas, Klein Boyd, and his dad was in the oil business as well, and so we were able to sell those units to mostly to our parents' friends, and decided to set up the operation in Memphis, Tennessee, because it was kind of in the middle of the area where I had my most contacts. I'd done most of my teaching, and again, that was about how complicated or sophisticated that decision was. So I set up the first world headquarters of what became Varsity, which was the second bedroom of my apartment. Perfect. And started doing free clinics around the South, introducing these new acrobatic tricks and stunts and pyramids, and teaching teams how to do them and how to use them. And the idea was if they came to this clinic, then they would possibly come back and actually pay money to come to camp in the summer. We went through all the money by the time we got to the start of the summer. I mean, literally out of money. And then we started getting registrations, and we were able to make it go. We had 4,000 people at our camps that summer, pretty successful. We actually made a profit the first year. I think it was about $1.50, something like that. And but we were kind of off and running, and it worked pretty well. People loved what they were doing. We got a great return rate, which is kind of how we built the franchise. And the problem again was I kept going through all the money. If we were growing and we'd made money, then whatever additional money we'd made, I spent up to the next summer. So we eventually we did our first kind of LBO. And
I don't know what LBO is.
Yeah, leverage buyout.
Okay.
And we're able to. It was time to buy out the partners. That was '89, I think. Time to buy out the people who had invested, and they were all getting older. And they pretty much invested and said, didn't expect to get anything. Just, good luck. We did a good job helping this young guy get started. And when I called them to tell them we were cashing them in, it was for each unit, $5,000 unit was $300,000.
Wow.
So, there was some pretty good enthusiasm at that. We eventually, as our camps continued to grow and we expanded across the country, those camps were done on college campuses, and we would, in effect, rent or lease facilities that the colleges weren't using in the summer. Athletic facilities, extra dorms, food service, and so on. So it was good for them. They were able to kind of leverage the infrastructure that we had, and we would get kind of, good prices, let's put it like that. So we eventually then added uniforms. What we found was that with the kind of the new brand, the new style, with all the athleticism, that the existing uniforms that 2 or 3 companies have been around for a while were making didn't really allow. There was no performance fabric. Uniforms are boring. The footwear had a sole on the bottom, didn't work. So we really went into the uniform business. Again, not much of a plan, but because our customers wanted us to, and nobody was providing the kind of uniforms to allow them to be able to do what we were teaching.
Sure.
And so we found a contractor. That was back when there was a lot of cut and sew work that was done in this country, the southern U.S. And we designed our first catalog. We used the kind of fabric I was talking about, and put out our catalog to all of our camp customers. They started ordering uniforms, and nothing went out the back door from our contractor. And I called after a few weeks. I started calling and asking him what the delay is, and of course I got, we're having some inventory issues, but it'll be solved next week. Well, this went on and on for about a month, and he called me. Now, keep in mind, we had invested everything we'd saved from our camps into this new part of our company. And he called me and said, it was a Sunday afternoon, and said, well, I guess some bad news. We're going into bankruptcy. Ugh. So we had our reputation on the line. We had our new kind of venture on the line. Yeah. And there we were. Customers had already sent their money in, and we'd sent the money in.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to find someone in North Carolina through a mutual friend who was had been in the cut and sew business. He was managing a sweater factory. And I went and met with him and told him what our problem was and could he help. And he pretty much said, well, I've always wanted to have my own company, and I got a pretty big basement in my house. So I bought him a few sewing machines and a cutter, and we got fabric, and he got the uniforms out. Wow. And so that was our second near-death experience.
So there's like 3 hours worth of podcast material we can go into just in this section alone. There's a couple of pieces that I want to lean into, though. One of them that you talked about is you started this because there was something that you saw more of like a need in, and so you're solving a problem because you're in this industry and you're like, I want to be able to do this, and I think there's a better way to do this. But what a lot of entrepreneurs, I think, don't realize is that they are as much problem creators as they are problem solvers. And so what's interesting is you created a problem, but the problem you created was we're introducing these moves that people need to do. And the problem that we've created is they don't have the uniforms and the gear to be able to do this. Therefore, Now we're going to solve this next problem. So a lot of people, I think, they go out about solving the first problem. And if all you're doing is just solving one problem, that becomes very small in its initial scope. And what's interesting is you don't necessarily even know all the problems you're going to create, but being aware of, okay, we've solved this problem. What additional problems have we created by solving this problem? That's where your next opportunity is. And I feel like that's what you're kind of getting at.
That's a pretty good way of putting it, actually. I tell people when I speak to young entrepreneurs, I say, listen, because you think I've just got this one idea, it's not going to be big enough. It's like most really, I think the word entrepreneur is overused now, by the way. Sure, but most true entrepreneurs who build these lasting companies that are into a lot of different things, most of them don't start out with the end. They've got an idea like you're talking about. They get into that, whether they create a problem or they see another opportunity along the way to bolt it on to what they've already done. And then that's how they build their enterprise. And that's pretty much what happened to us. Same thing. After we did the uniforms, we ended up getting into, came up with the idea of having cheerleaders compete. Nobody had done that before.
Why?
And because we wanted to get on television, and because we didn't have any money still. And so by being on television, people would pay us to come to them. And that's what we hoped. And it worked out pretty well. We created a competition.
And this is really what I want to dig into. The bulk of what I want to get into for this is because we talk about a lot of different growth ideas that people can have. And we'll talk about the advertising things they can do and the influencer stuff they can do, the affiliates. There's a lot of other ways. But the most unique thing that I think that you did from an approach to growth here was you lodged a competition for it. And I want to know, I want you to take me back to, if you can, in your mind, what was going through in your head that made you say, this is it. This is the idea. Like, continue to run out of money, but this is the one that I want to put some money into. This is going to turn our business around. Like, what was going on?
Well, again, we never envisioned competition as a real, profit center or revenue generator, significant. The idea was to create the competition, to use that competition through television, to showcase what this new style was, because not everybody could see it. Now, we were having tremendous success in the area we were in, and we knew that we really had something, right? And one of my sayings in business is, when the wind is at your back, run, because it's not going to always be at your back. And we had the wind at our back. We had to find a way to make it work. And so we thought about television, and then we said, well, we're doing these camps. That's not going to be a very exciting television show. What can we do? And so our instructional team at our camps have been doing some demonstrations where we did cheerleading to music. That hadn't been really done. And so we said, why don't we take those kind of routines and let these teams develop that, and that's how we'll judge it. So that's what we did. And we were lucky enough through a friend of mine to get an introduction to a sports syndication company. That was before cable was even very ubiquitous. Sure. And we got it on TV. It got great ratings. People saw us. They saw the style, and they paid us to come to them. So It worked. And we eventually, the gentleman who had the company, the television company, left that and went to an upstart cable company in Bristol, Connecticut, called ESPN. And so we went with him. I think ESPN was in 4 million homes when we went with him. I think they had like billiards, alligator wrestling, and cheerleading or something like that. So, so we kind of grew up with ESPN. So that's the perfect example. Did I plan that when we're going to build this franchise and then we're going to connect with this up and coming cable concept and then it's going to blow us up? No, we didn't. Yeah. It was kind of one step at a time. But I tell people, and I think you're referring to this really, is that, when you're building a company, you have to have your antenna up. Yeah. You want to focus on doing what you do well, but then you also have to have the kind of curiosity and the ambition, I guess, to go, okay, what else is out there? How can I do this better? What can add to what I'm doing? What kind of value can be added here? And is this something we can pursue? And can we do it? So that's kind of how we built them. Between the camps, the uniforms, and the competitions, and cross-marketing between those three, we built Varsity Spirit.
Vision is always so good in 2020, right? When you look backwards. I can see where it's like, okay, you do these camps, you're introducing these new moves. As a result of introducing new moves, there are a couple of problems that show up. One was the uniforms. It's like, well, they don't have the gear for it. Another one is we're doing these really cool moves. We're actually kind of taking some big risks here. We can get injured. What's it for if we can't show off a little bit, right? Like, we want to show off. And so it's like, okay, let's create this competition. But why? I want to go back to the very, very first one. Like, why introduce these moves into cheerleading? Like, what was the goal?
It was when we started out, it was just fun. Yeah. To tell you the truth, it's still fun. By the way, sure. Ask the people who participate. It was fun, and then when we did, it was like, wow, this can be used during a kickoff, or whoa, this could be used to really get the crowd to do this, or so this could be used during our fight song, and it just added athleticism and entertainment to it, and that was pretty much it. And that's kind of the genesis. Then, of course, it became, we were able to develop the techniques. People see all these pyramids and all these, these acrobatic stunts. what they don't realize is you don't just hop up in there. There are actual techniques that you use. They're different than the old acrobats use, by the way. But anyways, there are ways that you get into these. There's ways that you connect them. There's ways that you dismount. All those kind of techniques. We were able to develop those through experimentation and just focus and, some would say talent. We were able to develop these techniques so that we could teach them quickly to teams. And if you could get them in an environment and say, okay, today we're going to learn this and this. And they're like, there's no way we can do that, right? Well, but in 30 minutes later, voila, there they are. And when it happens, they're just kind of this boom. They're like, my God, I can't believe we can do this. Look at this. We can use this in front of our crowd. So it kind of became this phenomenon that people, they liked doing it. It had a big impact when they got back to their schools and just kind of built on itself.
So I have two questions then about this, and I'm going to ask them both, but I want to start with one, but I just want to ask them both so I don't forget them. One is, how did you keep your antenna up, like you mentioned, as you're solving this problem? Was this customer feedback? Were you soliciting customer feedback, or was it unsolicited? They're just giving it to you and they're saying, we need gear to do this, we can't do that, and you're like, okay, you can't do it, I'll do this. Or were you asking like, hey, what problems do you have? Or when you get to the competition, same things, or are you just out there scouting and seeing what people are doing in other industries and saying, oh, somebody else is doing this over here, what if I bring that over here? Like, how were you keeping your antenna up? And I want to start with that one, but I'm going to ask the other one so I don't forget it. I already forgot it. Let's start with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when I started the company, I was 24 years old, and I hired the top 20 college cheerleaders and cheerleading instructors. They became my summer teaching staff. It was a summer job, right? And so I wasn't that much older than they were, right? We were really a bunch of kids.
Sure. And
traveling all over the country and teaching all them, and it was a lot of fun. And but there was I was the boss. There was no doubt. I was paying their paycheck, but I was the boss. But it was a real kind of egalitarian approach. We were all friends, and so that and that wasn't something that was done consciously. It wasn't like we're going to have this egalitarian culture. It was like it just worked, but that part of it remained. And I was actually in the field. I didn't set up the camps and say, go out there and send the money back. I mean, I was out there with them, right? I was teaching. I was there running the staff meetings, assigning the staff and teaching the teams. And that I stayed involved till the very end in the field. And it was partially because I just felt like I could contribute something. That was what I was getting back. But secondly, the other benefit is that you're there, you're watching. You don't have to do a survey. You don't have to go dig in and do and go to school on another company. You're there. You see it. You hear it. And we also, again, being a small company when we started, we had this kind of concept, which is called continuous improvement today. Of course, it's got a name, but we have to do better every time. How can we be better in every single thing that we do? And we did that ongoing. We did it at the end of a camp where we'd sit down and go, okay, what went right? What can we do better? How are we going to do it? And so some of those early concepts from being a very small, young company were able to become a part of our culture. So I think that being in the field. I mean, I called I've called it kind of the over and under approach for me. And so when I talk to people who are actually building companies. So for me, the over, that's the top. That's where you're at the customer, and that's you've got to be there. You got to hear what's going on, and that's part of that's the strategy. It's kind of come up with the vision. How do we do it? And then the under really is one-on-one. You're there. The middle is going to be things like accounting and technology and all the things that are important, but they're commodities. All right?
Sure.
They're commodities. But contact with the customer, right? Strategy, vision. Those are the things that I think that the true entrepreneur normally brings to the party.
I remembered my second question, which is how did you prioritize some of these new things? Because it can be very easy sometimes as an entrepreneur, as a founder, somebody who's running a business, and you're generating income, you've got bills to pay, to say, we're doing this is doing well. We've already got, the gear. Let's just stay focused on our lane. And you'll hear this from VCs, and it's good advice. Stay focused, right? But how do you look at this and say, yeah, but, how do you prioritize some of these other yeah, buts?
Well, look, can you walk and chew gum at the same time? I mean, it's like, yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, right. But I guess what I'm saying is, if you've got a good organization, yes, you want to be focused on doing what you do well, but then you want to be looking at how do we do it better and how do we add more value? Mm-hmm. And it's not like we're just trying to build a company. We're just trying to do more. We're trying to do more of what we do, and we're trying to do it better, and we're trying to build the enterprise for the enterprise's sake. I think when you just try to build the enterprise for money, you got about a 50-50 shot there. When you're really trying to build it and add value, if you just use discipline, you make some mistakes, but I think that enhances your chance for success.
Yeah, you talked about making mistakes. What's a mistake that you made along the way?
You don't have enough time. I mean, it's like,
how about one?
where do I begin? Right? It's like, oh my God. First of all, as I said, I was undercapitalized. Now, Having said that, I tried to raise as much as I could. Probably didn't make any difference, but it was even thinking that $100,000 would be enough. But to be honest, there was no way I knew it was going to take off like it was going to. Right? So you can give me some slack on that one, right? Sure. The other one was, again, when I got into the uniform business. I went and picked this contractor. It was a company in Eastern Tennessee. They made all kinds of athletic uniforms. I was familiar with the brand. I thought, sure. This is a great company. I should have asked to see their balance sheet. Sure. I didn't know enough to, right? I should have seen their P&L. I should have been a little bit. Should have had more skepticism. Let's put it like that. But I do think, again, if you do things long enough, it's just like everything in life, right? You're gonna do some things well. You're gonna make some mistakes, and the key is to do more good things than make mistakes. And then when you make the mistakes, try to correct it and be honest about it. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much the way we were able to do it, thankfully.
Yeah. When I think about a lot of the businesses that we work with, they're growing, and this is a really good spot for them. They're getting to that 10 million, maybe 20, 30, $40 million range. And they sometimes find this plateau. They're a little bit stuck, right? And one of the things...
You usually find a plateau.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. You're usually going to find a plateau there. And so we talked about a lot of ways to break out of that plateau. And some of the ways we just talked about last week here with Rashad Jain was, you can... reach into new audiences. That's a great way to break out of it. Another way is you can launch new products, right? And so you had all those opportunities at Varsity Spirit too. Or what you didn't talk about is you can create the category and make the category bigger. How can people think about that from a perspective of how to make their category bigger, when to know whether that should be their focus versus just adding a new audience? You could have said, hey, we want to do, sports apparel now for pickleball, for whatever, that wasn't a thing, tennis, whatever, right? Start expanding that way. What made you say we want to go and build this category bigger rather than saying, hey, our TAM is too small, I want to make our TAM bigger?
Yeah, doing it more vertically rather than horizontally.
Yeah.
Right. So I wasn't smart enough to do the other. I think because we were creating it, really, as I look back on it, and it just took. In most cases, it really just had a take. And because we were able to, again, I look back like the uniform business. We didn't start out going, I think if we had uniforms, this is going to be a great, it's going to be the biggest part of our company. It was like, we got to do these uniforms. People want them. Our customers need them. It will help more people do this, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of incremental. The same on competition. We tried a few times. We at one point my kids are really into soccer, and I was younger, and we actually got in the soccer business. We bought the USL, which is the minor leagues of soccer. We owned it, and we also bought the on the field license for Umbro, which was and neither one of them went very well. We were lucky enough to be able to sell the Umbro license back to a British private equity firm for more money than we would have taken, and it's just, we also got into doing creating events, conventions, learning conferences and competitions for dance studios. It worked okay. We thought, look, we know how to teach, we know how to do technique, we know how to hire staff, we know how to run an event, we know how to create, the production that helps make a successful event. What we didn't count on was that there were already a number of people doing that, and they were doing a pretty good job. And that also that in that particular market, different than cheerleading, the teams want to try something different every year. For us, it was like, we're going to be so great when they come to us, they won't go anywhere else. That was just the difference in culture, and we weren't from that dance culture. We should have known better. It was a mistake, and we didn't really lose money, but it didn't really take. So we did do some things like we expanded internationally. That was a big step for us. But you're right. We eventually, and with the company, we merged with Riddell, the football company. Yep. We sold Riddell. So
wow.
You could say, did that work? I don't know. It was a good idea when we did it. Some things changed. My product liability became a little more important in our society, and we were a public company then, and the idea of having a company where people could have head injuries, even though it was under control, it just kind of suppressed the stock. So we got out of that. So I don't know. I think either one works. We just knew the cheer space, and because we'd created it, but we kept creating it. We kept adding to it. We kept adding different things, different pieces, different events. When we started in television, that first competition was for high school teams, and it was an invitation, the top 20 teams that we knew. It was pretty contrived. Eventually, we added regional qualifying tournaments. We added a college championship. We added a dance team championship. So it was just kind of bolt-on sort of components that we were building around the core. And the core was still teaching camps, the actually teaching teams to be effective when they go back to school. That's a longer answer than you wanted.
No, it's great. When we think about cheerleading as it is today, I hesitate to say this, but I feel like this is true. It is what it is today because of the work that you and your team have done. It literally, you guys created cheerleading what it is today. What's one of the moments that you're the most proud of when you look back at all of that?
I always loved the team. I love team sports, and it was always so gratifying, with a team to come up with an idea or to do a camp or a competition. And, one of the great things about both camps and competitions, especially if you've got a short attention span, is that there's a start and there's an end, sure. Right? And the camp is like 4 days, competition 2 days. But you plan it, you promote it, you execute it, and then it's over. And if you've done it enough, when it's over, if you did a good job or not. You'll know if it was a success, whether you and your team were able to pull it off. And there's a lot to be said for that. To be able to get that kind of feedback, it gives you motivation to keep going. So, I had so many of those moments where we'd have our biggest competition, or the first time we had our world championship, and we're able to pull that off with all these different countries. Those are all, I feel very, very fortunate and blessed to have been able to have those great moments where, like a professional athlete after the Super Bowl, it's like, wow, worked really hard for that, and we did it together. This was our idea, and we did something that was great. We did something that was valuable, where people want to be a part of it, where they got something out of it, and hopefully they had a good time.
You don't get to be able to launch, like, let's just say, like 3 different businesses and then some now, without having really good hiring practices, right? Because there's going to be a lot of scale that needs to happen. You're going to have to rely on a lot of people. You've hired thousands of people, I'd imagine, in your course. What's some advice that you would have for people that are really trying to break through $10 million mark, and maybe from a hiring perspective, it's like, this is likely where you're getting stuck and you need to think about this when you're hiring?
Yeah. We were really lucky in that for a long time, I mean, probably still today, we started with the camps. And those were the people that came into those camps that were teaching, were kind of the best of the best college cheerleaders, eventually college coaches. And they would come in, and typically they'd work during the summer. They'd work from the 1st of June till the end of August. They'd do a number of camps. They had to get up every day. They had to do their best job. They had to work on a team. They had to represent the company. They had to execute, right? It's a lot to ask of a 19-year-old kid, by the way,
sure.
Right? And but from the very beginning, when they got to their first training session, we talked a lot, and we worked a lot, not only on how they were all talented, but it's how to teach, how to make sure that how to treat junior and high school kids, what they're interested, how you take a 4-day session and make it a production, is where it's got ups and downs emotionally, where it's meaningful. Mm-hmm. And the long and short, and not everybody makes it. Somebody may work for 1 summer, somebody may work for 2, but you eventually end up with the very best by the time they've been doing it 3 or 4 years. And those are usually people who are leaders on their campus. They're good students, they're responsible, they're personable. So we had, at one time we had nearly 2,000 instructors out there in the summer. And all those people, I think most of them would tell you, they had that experience for them was one of the best of their lives, and for many of them had a tremendous impact on where they ended up. I'm not bragging, I'm just quoting here, okay? Mm-hmm. And so I guess what I'm saying is we really had an incredible pipeline for hiring people and great young people that we could bring into the company. We knew what their work ethic was. We knew if they were honest or not, because they'd been around collecting money and selling merchandise and all this stuff. We knew how responsible they were. And so we kind of got our pick. And we were able to keep so many of those people, for their entire careers. I mean, we couldn't run them off with a stick, right? I mean, they were there, and so many of them were able to grow with the company. It's like someone said to me, well, most entrepreneurs flame out at 10 million, or not that they flame out, that they just hit a wall, and it's hard to get over that hump. And there's several of those humps, I was lucky to get to a couple of billion hump, but it was like everybody growing together. But I do believe that the key to all of that is everybody says you have to attract good people. Well, duh, right? The question is, how do you identify them? How do you get them, and how do you keep them? And then how do you get the most out of them? And it's a lifelong process. But I think culture makes a difference. When I talked about those camps and the instructors, and when you're telling a 19-year-old kid, you have to get up every day and do your very best. I don't care how you feel. You're going to be on your feet from 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock, 8 in the morning to 9 at night. It's going to be hot. You're going to work hard. You're in effect on all the time. You have to do that. If you don't want to do that, this is not the place for you. That builds a kind of, I call it professional snobbery, that they all expect that from each other. And by God, if I'm giving it and you're not fitting in. So we were just really lucky to have that kind of pipeline. People that don't, I think it's you're right. It's probably the biggest challenge. It is as far as building a company over the long term. It's the biggest challenge. But I think the important thing, if you can look at their backgrounds, but I think the important thing is telling them very early on what you expect. And that needs to be a lot. If you're running a company where you don't expect much, good luck with that long term. You have to expect a lot. You have to support them. You have to give them as much as they're giving you, but they have to know that you expect their best. And most importantly, their peers have to expect that from them.
Mm-hmm. I'm far behind you in the hiring process there. That said, we're growing and I've learned my fair share of things. And if I could take some of what you said and say what I'm hearing, saying that you expect a lot, one of the things I almost try to talk people out of the job that I'm interviewing, right? It's like, I'm going to tell you all the reasons why this job is going to be very hard. Are you still interested? And if you say that I know that I've laid it out there on the table. And so you're choosing that. And what's interesting is those A players, they want you to expect a lot. They don't want to be in an environment where not much is expected of them. They want to
be with other A players too.
Yes. Yeah. And so thankfully we are at the point now where I feel like it's been fun to see my team create their own culture that holds themselves accountable. And I don't have to be the one that does that. They want to hold each other accountable. And I think to your point, if you can build that from the very beginning, that allows for a lot more acceleration.
You're right. Agree.
You are able to sell then for a couple billion. For a life-changing amount. How has that changed and shaped what you find important in life?
It hasn't.
Yeah.
That's pretty simple. First of all, I didn't get all that money, private equity partners. Sure. But I don't know, I don't think, I just from a kind of a personal lifestyle, it hasn't really changed. It's had a really good friend when we were with Riddell, the football company. We put two companies together, and one of the guys from the other side, they were New York based guys, and they were a little older, and our side of the board, we were all these young Southern boys, and so it was quite the board meeting, as you can imagine. But
sure,
one of these guys, they had a lot of money, and this one guy I became very good friends with, and he was older, and we were out in New York sometime, and he was talking about I think it was the price of the meal or something like that. He's a really wealthy guy, and I started giving him crap about it, and he said, I can't help it. He said, it's my peasant upbringing. And so I've used that line a lot. It's like, when you grow up in a middle class family or lower middle class family, and you got to be at least aware of what things cost, you're just gonna be. But I think that it the one thing it's done, I think, is put me in a position where I think people could seek out my counsel or my support or whatever, which I'm happy to do. It's put me in a position to be able to help people more, and I don't mean just contribute and want to do some of that, but if I help people get companies started, I may invest a little here and there, and help them. And so that's it's put me in a position to do that, which is meaningful to me.
Yeah, and you do a lot of that now, which is a really cool thing. What is, if you were going to say, what is the biggest, most recurring piece of advice that you find yourself giving to Gen Z who's trying to get started on doing something, or entrepreneurs, and you're saying, this seems to be the thing that I need to reiterate the most?
What are you just? I ask them what when they usually they've got a whole idea what they want to do. They're bringing it to me, right? It's not in the very early stage, but it's like they're trying to put it together. They've got some kind of little, rudimentary deck or something, right? Which is fine, It's like I kind of almost go through this, try to understand what they're doing, and then why they think it'll work. Right. And then I get into the things like, well, what value do you see this creating? Who's this going to be value? How's it going to help somebody's life? What value is going to do? And then I always ask, because a lot of them aren't new ideas and new products. Maybe they got a little different take on an existing industry. It's like, what differentiates this from anything that's out there. What's your brand differentiation? What is it? People get stuck on that one. It's it's this. But I think, and then the other thing is, as they start to get bigger, we talk about culture, and I think culture again is another one of those words that's overused out there.
For sure.
I mean, I've heard these big companies talk about their culture. They have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They don't have a culture. Their culture is, how do I make some money, or how do I get myself up the ladder, or blah blah. That's what it is. How do I sell more? And they got some mission statement on the wall. They think that's their culture. The culture being the thing that gives you, I think it gives you just the extra juice, and it gives you the extra stability, because people want to be a part of it, and that culture needs to be built around what you and I've talked about so far. It's like doing your best, expecting your best every day, all the time, supporting each other, putting the customer in a position where they're getting value. I'm not one of the people go, well, are we customer driven? No, we're not customer driven. We serve the customer. I'm kind of a Steve Jobs guy. The customer doesn't know what they want till we show it to them. Sure. So it's like, if we are out there with all of our customers all over the country, because we have a national market, we're going to hear from them all the time, and we're going to see what's working and not working. So I don't know. There's just so much to it, as you know, and I think it just I think really kind of create that culture and realize that you're going to be working your ass off, right? And you're never going to leave it.
Yeah, well, and I've heard a lot of people talk about it. It's like, if you work nonstop for something you're passionate about, it's exciting, versus if you work for something that you're not passionate about, it's stress, right? But it's like, there's a difference.
There is. Now, people say, well, is this something you enjoy? I'm like, define enjoy. It's like, is it something that I'm committed to and that I feel strongly about and that I think I can contribute? Yes, that's what drives me.
That's it. That's nuanced but important.
Thank you.
I want to talk about who is Jeff Webb. I think it's fun to get to know the human being, the person. How has your childhood shaped you to be the person who is able to see these things and create this? So,
as I mentioned, I grew up of course, everybody says this, right? Grew up in a middle-class family. Fortunate enough, there was had a mom and a dad, a brother and a sister, Dallas, Texas. My dad was in the oil business, although he just worked for an oil company. He wasn't a tycoon or anything. And my mother was a kindergarten teacher, right? And, it was that day, we played sports and we were outside most of the time. And, I went to public school. I mean, public schools were really good then. I think I just, my childhood, I was busy. I did things that I wanted to do, that mostly sports, but just the encouragement that I got from my parents, it wasn't fake. It was like, especially my mother. My mother had been the Dallas City tennis champion. She was a female athlete before it was cool.
That's cool.
And, it was always like, you can do anything you want to do. When I started to come up with the idea to start the company, trying to decide whether I go back to law school or not. That was the question. And she was like, do the company out. Mom, it might not work. Right. I don't know. The fear of failure, by the way, drives a lot of entrepreneurs. And I said, might not work. And she said, so what? So it doesn't work. You do something else. So what? Am I going to kill you? Do it. Try it. And it was always that, go for it. And that sort of thing is sticks, I think. And just knowing that your parents are there and your family's there, no matter what, I think that was the key for me.
That's huge. Yeah, that is something that I think can't be taken for granted. You told me before that you are a curious perfectionist. How do these manifest?
I'm not sure either one of those is good, by the way, but keep going.
Well, okay, let's just say all traits have positives and negatives, right? They are all our superpowers and our kryptonite. But in what ways have those been? Let's just say, in what ways have those been superpowers for you, and in what ways have those been kryptonite?
I think the curiosity, um, the curiosity, I think, puts you out there, puts the antenna up that we talked about, earlier. Uh, I think sometimes the curiosity you can wander off the path, which I've done a couple times in my life. I think that the perfectionism, I think, can help. I go back to the continuous improvement concept, which I'm a total believer in. It's amazing how many companies don't really have that. It's amazing. Talk about it, they don't really have it. The perfectionist part of it, I remember at one point I had a friend who was a psychiatrist, and we were having a beer and talking about stuff, and we were talking about my company and things like that, and he said, would you consider yourself a perfectionist? Oh, yes. I thought that was a really big compliment, right? Yeah. I mean, of course, I'm always trying to do things better and never really satisfied with it. And he said, well, yeah, but, that might make you a lot of money, but it's demonic. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, you're never happy. You're never really happy. You got to be really careful with that, because you don't want that to come across to the people that work with you and think that you're not happy with them. Just because you're trying to do it better, make sure that they buy into it, that they don't think they're never good enough for you. So I've tried to keep that in mind. It's hard not to be the perfectionist. It has its advantages, but when it comes to my friends and families and colleagues, I try to temper it. Let's put it like that.
I can resonate with that. My mom had a sign on her door. My mom was a band director that said, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And it's a really good...
That's right. It's a good one.
It's fair to a point, because there are a lot of people that can practice something the wrong way and not getting better. Then they're just practicing how to do it incorrectly, right? It's like, no, practice it the right way on purpose. And so it's like the sentiment behind it is beautiful.
It is.
But I will say it's tough too. How have you figured out a way to balance that both for your own mental psyche as well as for those around you? Because I will say that I can see this in myself. I can see this sometimes in my kids. I can see this in others that I know that are entrepreneurs who are driven in that way. The way that you talk to somebody else is not the way that you talk to yourself. You talk to yourself sometimes in a very negative way, right? Where it's like, you should have done better than that. Sure, that's fine if somebody else, you could have done better. How have you learned to grow through that?
Yeah, well, I think that I think it's easier for us sometimes, people like us, to be a lot more accepting of others than ourselves.
Right.
And I'm not saying expect less from them, but we're, I think, usually more willing to accept their humanity. And, I've tried to, one of the things I have a talk that I give about what it takes to be, to be a great leader, usually it's manager or what, it depends on the situation. And we go through things like, a passion to do your best and, an awareness. So, some of the things that we can talk about. But the very last one that I say is that, here's the last one, the most important one, more than all the others together, be kind. So I think that has to be a part of your culture as well. It has to be a part of your personality. And, you can expect a lot, you can push hard, you can do the kind of things, but, you can also do it and be kind.
There's a Bible verse that talks about love others the way you love yourself. And I oftentimes try to remind myself of that verse when I'm maybe expecting too much of myself in a certain situation. It's like, if I actually loved other ways, say that I'm loving myself right now, I'd be embarrassed because I couldn't say those things to somebody else, right? And so sometimes just recognizing that, and it's like, why don't I speak that way? We were at the Washington County Fair here, and I saw a Down syndrome kid throwing this baseball at one of those little things to check the speed, and the way everybody was cheering for him was absolutely beautiful. And I was like, why don't we cheer more for the people in our lives the way that everybody's cheering right now? Why don't we cheer for ourselves in that way, where it's like, you did a great job, celebrate that, continue to want to change, right? Continue to want to improve. There's nothing wrong with that,
Agreed.
celebrate those good things too.
It's and it's a real issue for people like us, and it's like, and I find that here this will, without being too heavy about it, you'll find as you get older too, you look up and you go, oh, I wish I would have taken a little more time to celebrate, and to really, because we always look ahead, right? We're always looking ahead, and that's fine to look ahead, but it's important for you and for those around you to celebrate when something goes really well.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
It is. I see that you've got a bunch of instruments on the back wall there. Are those real instruments? Are you a musician?
It's play the guitar a little bit. I've got one of my later things in life. You got a little band called the Thunderbolts, and
nice.
So those are pictures. My assistant is a great photographer.
Oh, those are wonderful.
And so she took some of those at practice and some things like that. So, yeah. Thanks.
Electric guitar, acoustic guitar?
The acoustic for me, yeah.
Yeah, who's your inspiration?
I wouldn't say I'm the greatest, but I got some really good friends who are great.
Yeah. Who's your inspiration? What's your musical?
Look, listen, I go all the way back. Believe it or not, our band does things from, I would say if you had to choose, it's kind of a little more kind of modern country, but let me go back and do some other things. We do a couple of Beach Boys songs, if you can believe that.
I love it.
Yeah. The whole harmony thing is kind of what we do. Yeah. So we got a couple of really good professional musicians, then a couple of amateurs like me. We got a couple of ringers. My fiddle player, I know that either Kenny Chesney will be stealing her from me, I think. But anyway, yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Yeah, is that something that you've always done, or is that more of a recent passion?
I played some growing up, and then I put it away. After my kids, I used to play with my kids when they were little bitty and sing with them, Then once they started getting older, I kind of put it away. And then about a few years ago, people said, "Hey, you know what you're missing?" And I went, and they brought it up, and I said, "Yeah, I think I'll." It was hard to start over. I'll tell you that.
Sure.
But it's fun. What do you play?
Yeah, well, I play a little bit of all of that. Probably not as well as, there's definitely a lot better players, but acoustic is my main instrument, but I play the bass guitar, and I played that for about 8 years. I played the drums. I played trumpet was my main band instrument. So again, my mom was a band director. My dad was in a semi-pro professional country band, and so music was just kind of a lifeblood of ours as well. And so I've played a lot of different things, and I don't play it as much anymore. So it's kind of similar to you. It's like I got kids now, and so I'm really supporting my oldest daughter in her music right now. So she's been taking a lot of voice lessons, and she just bought her first Taylor guitar by herself. Drove out to Sweetwater with her grandpa, picked it out, saved up her money, bought it, and so.
Oh, that's amazing!
It's fun to see them in their progress, and now I just play around a little bit for fun. And,
how old are your kids?
Yeah, 15, 12, and 9. So
oh, wow. That's
we're in
great.
A wild stage.
That's great. Good for you. Well, good luck for the next 5 years, 6 years, brother.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
It'll go well.
Jeff, it has been a lot of fun talking to you, getting to know you, learning from you. If there's any way for people that wanted to work with you or follow you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm at International Cheer Union is what I'm running. It's our international federation. They can get me through there. It's probably the easiest thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm around.
Oh, that's good.
Pedaling as fast as I can still.
Yeah, no, that's good. You got to have a passion. Again, it's been a lot of fun learning from you. I appreciate you sharing your time and your wisdom with us. Is there any other information or anything else that you'd like to share with people?
No, I think you've hit on the things, and I appreciate the chance to talk about not only my experience, but the things that I think are important. And hopefully there'll be some people out there that are either starting a business or leading an organization of any kind that think that some of these leadership tips will help. I hope so.
I'm sure they will. Thank you again, and thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.